But first tonight, that big story, a Mail Today impact. The newspaper in the morning today exposed how the Narendra Modi government had decided to shut down the case of Kargil martyr Saurabh Kalia. But now, after that report, reversing its earlier stand, the Modi government has announced this evening that it could approach the International Court of Justice against the brutal torture of Captain Kalia by the Pakistani army. But the government will first approach the Supreme Court to pronounce on the legality of going to the ICJ in relation to disputes concerning armed conflicts and hostilities with Pakistan. As remember, these are Commonwealth countries and two countries who have said that they will settle all issues bilaterally. Is Sushma Swaraj then giving us only another election jumla? That's the top story tonight here on News Today at 9.
His eardrums pierced with hot rods, eyes gouged out, limbs and genitals chopped off. Unspeakable brutality inflicted on Kargil hero Captain Saurabh Kalia and admitted to by a Pakistan army soldier on camera. Now, 16 years later, justice still eludes the Braveheart's family. Mail Today was the first to report how the NDA government has shut the door on justice by refusing to move the International Court of Justice against Pakistani barbarity and war crimes.
It is, of course, sad and unfortunate. I am an optimistic man. I will continue my struggle.
I think it is really now for the conscience of this country and conscience of the government in terms of what they do for the family of Lieutenant Kalia, Captain Kalia, and really about doing the right thing for the family.
After a massive uproar over the Modi government's U-turn, the centre came out with a clarification.
Exceptional circumstance है, तो इसलिए हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट में अपना हलफनामा बदलें और यदि सुप्रीम कोर्ट हाँ करेगा तो हम अंतर्राष्ट्रीय कोर्ट ऑफ जस्टिस, इंटरनेशनल कोर्ट ऑफ जस्टिस में इस मसले को ले जाएंगे.
But experts say approaching the International Court of Justice may not yield any positive results. Justice for Captain Kalia is a test case for the Modi government. Can the NDA finally close the darkest chapter of the 1999 Kargil conflict? Bureau Report, India Today.
And earlier today, I spoke to Mr. N.K. Kalia, and my first question to him was, sir, you've been running from pillar to post for the last 16 years for justice for your son. This morning, you got the news that the government had decided no more legal options. We are shutting down the case. We can't go to the ICJ. Did you at that moment, as a father of a Kargil martyr, feel, dare I say, a little betrayed?
No, it is, of course, sad and unfortunate. But I am an optimistic man. I will continue my struggle. I would like to tell you that this case is also pending in the Honorable Supreme Court of India. I have full faith in the apex court.
But, you know, sir, before coming to power, the BJP had taken a stand on your son's case. During the elections, they had said that they would do everything possible to take this to the International Court of Justice. To that extent, do you feel that your son was part of a political campaign, that this was just political rhetoric?
No, this exercise is normally done by every political party in India. My own experience in the last 16 years is same. It may be UPA, it may be NDA, or it may be any other political parties in India. They are alike. They have a very scant concern for the army.
You know, you're saying something very important to me. You believe that every political party has scant concern for the army. Every political party, in a sense, resorts to political rhetoric. It's been, in that sense, for you, sir, a long 16-year-old struggle. Have you felt that this is a lonely fight for justice, that it's you, your wife, fighting the system in a way? Because at the end of the day, you know, the system can only do so much.
No, I must not speak. I am not alone. The whole media in India is with me, and millions of people in India and abroad are with me in the last 16 years. Through this channel, I want to thank each and every Indian who has supported me and who is inspiring me to continue this struggle.
You know, you say, sir, that the people of India have been with you, but the political class, whether it was the previous UPA government or now the NDA government, at the end of the day, do you feel abandoned by them, or are you now coming to terms with the fact that, as I said, governments can only do so much? Going to the ICJ is fraught with several legal and diplomatic risks. Do you feel abandoned?
The love, the respect, and the feeling of the longingness that has been showed by millions of people, that keep me emboldened all the time. And I will continue this fight till I am alive, whether I achieve anything or not.
Sir, you know, no one can really sort of come to terms with what you've gone through. Only you and your wife and your family can really, understand the feeling of having lost your son. But I just want to know, when you hear the Indian government sort of, push its diplomatic relationship with Pakistan, do you see that we've gone soft on Pakistan, or are you coming to terms with the fact again that international relations, sir, will have its own trajectory?
In fact, but Indian government, whosoever is in power, they don't have any clear-cut, concrete, and solid policy about Pakistan. But this matter you can observe in the last 6 to 7 years.
Captain, Mr. N.K. Kalia, appreciate your joining us. As I said, your grief is really what's kept you going in many ways. We can understand and empathize with you. But I want to raise the question, did the Narendra Modi government have any option? What about what Sushma Swaraj has said, going to the ICJ? Is that a flip-flop? Can the government really, in a sense, take the case of Saurabh Kalia to the ICJ? Let's try and find out that. Joining me now, KC Singh, former Secretary External Affairs, to tell us what options does the government have. Appreciate your joining us, sir. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, Member of Parliament, Rajya Sabha, who's taken this case on his own in an individual petition to the ICJ and has been writing to the government of India. And Aman Sinha, spokesperson of the BJP. Let me first ask you, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, it's a strange sort of day because the government of India seems to have responded to a media report of a story broken in Mail today that the government of India has decided to close the case. When you asked a question to the Minister of State for External Affairs, V.K. Singh, in July last year, he said the possibility of seeking legal remedies through the international courts was thoroughly examined, not found feasible. The report comes in today's paper, and at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, Sushma Swaraj addresses a press conference in Udaipur saying, no, we will change our affidavit and we will seek the advice of the Supreme Court and see whether we can go to the ICJ. Has this all happened under media pressure, and is this simply a flip-flop?
No, so let me start by saying, Rajdeep, I think it is good that the government has taken a decision which is the right decision by the family of Saurabh Kalia. So on that we should have absolutely no ambiguity. Now, could this have been said to me on July 31st, 2014? It probably could have and maybe should have. Why did the government at that point say what it did? I suspect it was to do with the fact that they have just formed a government. This was a bureaucratic answer prepared by some bureaucrat in the External Affairs Ministry and then presented in front of Parliament. I am giving the government that benefit of the doubt.
Maybe the government is being realistic.
Yep.
Maybe the government was being realistic in July when they told you that they cannot really take this case to the International Court of Justice, and now under media pressure they are doing what I would call either an eyewash or a flip-flop. Because the fact is, it is not easy to take a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan to the International Court of Justice.
Rajdeep, let's be very clear. This is not about easy or difficult. It is about doing the right thing. There cannot be a case made out that a government sits silently for 16 years when a crime has been committed against an Indian citizen. And there is a crime. There is a war crime. There is a breach of the Geneva Convention. So there cannot be a case made by anybody in government that the government just sits around and does nothing, which is what the UPA did for the 4 years that I pursued this with the UPA government. Now, there is you can make an argument that in July 30th, 2014, the government should have said what they are saying today, because I believe the government should act. Now, whether the action results in the desired success, it is like any other court process. People will argue their cases and the court will decide the outcome. But the government should act, and which is what the government is doing today.
Can I give another twist to it? And maybe Aman Sinha, you want to respond to this, because the sense that one gets is that during the election campaign, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, as part of his election rhetoric, said that I would rather sacrifice my politics than prove disloyal to a martyr. I will take Saurabh Kalia's case up. And then once he enters government, he is faced with certain diplomatic and legal realities. So in that sense, this was another election jumla. And now you are faced with the reality.
No, Rajdeep, let me say that this government has the highest respect for valor, honor and sacrifices of our brave soldiers, and we'll do our utmost to ensure justice to them. This is never a jumla for us, and I think we'll be demeaning by saying anything to this respect.
I am giving the facts, sir. So the facts are, in July 2014, your Minister of State for External Affairs says there is no possibility of seeking legal remedies. It is not feasible. Only after the Mail Today report, your government wakes up because you are aware of media pressure.
Rajdeep, if you are only interested in highlighting politics over this, that is not the point. The point is that External Affairs Minister today made a categorical announcement that this government will do all that it can, and it is going to change the affidavit.
You have only passed the buck to the Supreme Court. Your government this evening only passed the buck to the Supreme Court.
Please do not interrupt like this. I have not even completed the answer, and you are putting another question. You feel free to ask as many questions as you can, but please allow me to respond. The government is going to change the affidavit which was filed by the UPA government, which stated that we are not going to take this up with ICJ or other international forums because of our friendly relations with Pakistan. We are going to change that. We are going to approach the Supreme Court for seeking their opinion and their permission to approach International Court of Justice.
You've only passed the buck to the Supreme Court under media pressure.
We are going to do that.
You passed the buck to the Supreme Court under media pressure.
And please also understand, Rajdeep, it was the same NDA government which took up this issue in 1999 and condemned the Pakistan's heinous acts on this issue in UN General Assembly. Thereafter in Human Rights Commission also we took it up. And what happened, the statement of Mr. General VK Singh at no point says that we are not going to approach ICJ. This is not a flip-flop at all. They were examining the feasibility. You are right, to the extent that, this was the stated line of the UPA government and it was taken forward inadvertently perhaps, but the government today has clearly, categorically stated its stand that we are going to approach the Supreme Court, taking a view that we want to change the stand taken by UPA government, and we intend to approach the International Court of Justice and other forums for ensuring justice to Saurabh Kalia.
Can I just for a moment take that cue then, KC Singh? The fact is the government of India seems to have reacted after the media reports. A. B. Is it feasible in the first place, in your view as a seasoned diplomat, to take this case to the International Court of Justice? When India, for example, was accused of shooting down a Pakistani naval aircraft in 1999, Soli Sorabji of the then Attorney General went to the ICJ and said Pakistan has no case. This is a bilateral issue which has to be settled bilaterally under Shimla and the Lahore agreements. Do you believe that we have a case to take it to the ICJ?
You see, at the moment there are two courts. You have the International Court of Justice, which is an institution of the UN, and you have an International Criminal Court, which came about in 2002. Unfortunately, we did not sign on to the International Criminal Court. The difference between the two courts is that the International Court of Justice looks at interstate disputes, whereas the International Criminal Court is specifically for acts like this, war crimes, genocide, and they even have a prosecutor. International Court of Justice does not have a prosecutor. We can take a complaint there. I have a feeling what would have conditioned the government's thinking at any stage, NDA 1 or UPS subsequently, that if you take it to the International Court of Justice, Pakistan may try to broaden it.
They will internationalize it. Pakistan will say human rights violations are being committed in Kashmir,
but they may bring in other political things into it. But nevertheless, the fact remains that a war crime under 49 Geneva Convention has been committed. There are no two ways. Mutilation of a body, even torture is forbidden. But mutilation is a war crime.
Can you take it to the ICJ? Do you believe the Supreme Court can direct the Indian government to take it to the ICJ? Or, as you say, that we've got to take it to the International Criminal Court?
We haven't signed on to the International Criminal Court.
So we cannot do that.
So we cannot do that.
And ICJ runs the risk of Pakistan internationalizing.
Because it's an interstate dispute. It becomes an interstate dispute, not a simple criminal complaint.
And both sides, if I'm not mistaken, have to agree to the ICJ's jurisdiction.
Yes.
India did not agree to the ICJ's jurisdiction in 1999 when we shot down a Pakistani naval aircraft.
That's correct. It has to be on the basis of both agreeing, and then you go to the ICJ.
So what are the options?
See, the options are any major power will not go to ICJ. As you know, even US has not signed on to the International Criminal Court because they're worried about somebody else taking them to the court.
Right.
They take unilateral action. If the Libyan bomber is there, they will sanction the country. They'll go after the country. This should have been taken actually to the Security Council. It should have gone to the UN and said, here is a war crime which has been committed, sanction them. But then the Chinese will come to their defense.
So you're saying diplomatic pressure was the way to, in a sense, encircle Pakistan 16 years ago?
We should have kept up the diplomatic pressure, and this should have been one of the items always on the agenda, because the pain of the family is shared by all Indians, shared by all fathers, mothers. This is something which you cannot just take off the plate.
You know, that's the question, Rajiv. I know you in individual capacity try to take this to the ICJ, but at the end of the day, we are dealing with government to government issues. Yes, we all want justice for Saurabh Kalia. But can that justice be provided in the ICJ given the limitations of the law?
No, Rajiv, I mean, like I said, the family of Saurabh Kalia is not particular about where the justice comes from or how the justice is delivered. I think the main issue that has been an issue that has really burned up a lot of people is the fact that the government has been inactive on this issue. The government has been seen as, you know, giving bland statements of international diplomacy when there is a real family and a real person involved. Nobody wants to hear geopolitical, nonsense when the issue is about a crime being committed against one individual and the family seeking justice. So while I, in my limited wisdom or infinite wisdom, went to the ICJ, it may be that Mr. Singh is correct, that there are other ways of pursuing it, which is fine with me, and the government of India should just pursue it, should have pursued it, and if the previous government could not do it, had no will to do it, this government at least is now coming out and saying we will do whatever we can.
Either we identify the specific soldiers, which is very difficult, of the Pakistani army, or as
the chief of the army staff.
The chief of the army staff. You're saying the chief of the army staff of the Pakistan.
I'll tell you what the Pakistanis have. The defense they've taken is these were non-state actors.
That's right.
Or they said they're wild animals, which is nonsense.
Yes.
Because they can't be piercing the eardrums. Very clearly there was torture. But I think we've really not taken it internationally, taken the post-mortem reports, shown that there was torture, because subsequently we even got footage of a retired Pakistani soldier saying that we saw the captain coming and we, caught hold of him, etc. Right. Indian channels have played it.
So essentially you're saying that if we really wanted to pursue it at an individual level, we could indict the Pakistani army leadership, or we take the route, as you're saying, of both, which we should have earlier taken, of sanctions.
Sanctions, and get those people sanctioned.
Okay.
So these people are, don't forget, US, in case of the few citizens who died in the 26/11 thing, they sued the DGISI in US. They sued the DGISI. So therefore, maybe nothing may come of it. The Chinese may protect them in the Security Council. But it should have been kept on the table, and that is how the pressure built up.
And that should have been done over the last 16 years, correct. NDA governments and UPA governments. I just want to give you, Aman Sinha, one final word. If you are willing to concede at least this much, that what happened today in the end, Sushma Swaraj's statement this evening was only because of the media pressure and the story broken on Mail Today. Otherwise, you were happy to go with the line that General VK Singh had given in Parliament to Rajiv Chandrasekhar. I want an honest response from you.
No, Rajdeep, the honest response is that, this may not have happened because the NDA government is yet to file an affidavit before the Supreme Court, and at that point in time we would have factored this in and taken a structured stand before the Supreme Court, stating that yes, we very much intend to approach the International Court of Justice or other international.
So it's not an afterthought.
Taking up this issue.
So it's not an afterthought.
Saurabh Kalia. No, it's not an afterthought, because we are yet to file an affidavit before the Supreme Court, Rajdeep. And you are right that General VK Singh made this statement in response to Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar's query, but as he stated, the government had just come in, and at that point in time also he did not rule out going to ICJ. But that is right that the UPA government stand was inadvertently taken forward. However, when we have to take a structured stand before the Supreme Court, we would have surely taken the stand that we want to take it up before ICJ and other international forums, and we'll do our utmost to ensure justice to late martyrs Captain Saurabh Kalia. I'm
going to leave it at that. It's interesting how politicians sometimes respond to media pressure and say they were going to do it in any case. But Rajiv Chandrasekhar, for your fight for Captain Saurabh Kalia, I appreciate your joining us and keeping this issue on top of the public mind. Aman Sinha, KC Singh, for giving us options before the government. Where do we stand? Yes, the BJP did make an electoral promise that justice will be done to Captain Saurabh Kalia, but the party in power has been reminded of the gap between rhetoric and reality. Taking Captain Kalia's battle to the ICJ may be desirable, but not feasible. A better way to pay tribute to the martyr's memory may be to ensure that there is zero tolerance to any form of cross-border terrorism.